Scars of a Broken Home. When Anna and Mark married, they were young and full of dreams. At first, their home was full of laughter and small hopes for the future. But with time, arguments began to replace the warmth. Their children, Emma and Daniel, often listened in silence. The arguments grew louder each year. Sometimes they were about money, sometimes about trust, and sometimes about nothing at all. Emma covered her ears with a pillow, while Daniel sat quietly in the corner. The walls of the house carried heavy tension. Mark often left the house late at night, slamming the door behind him. Anna stayed awake, crying softly in the kitchen. The children pretended to sleep, but their small hearts carried the weight of every sound. Fear became part of their nights. Emma began to avoid bringing friends home, ashamed of the shouting. Daniel grew quieter, afraid that his voice would only add to the chaos. The children learned to walk carefully, choosing their words like glass. The home no longer felt safe. At school, Emma's teachers noticed she was distracted and tired. She often drew pictures of broken houses and dark skies. Daniel wrote stories where families lived in silence. Their pain appeared in small ways, but no one understood the whole truth. One winter evening, the fight became worse than ever. Plates broke, doors shook, and the children hid under the bed. That night something inside them changed. They promised each other quietly that they would never live this way as adults. Years passed, and the home stayed filled with conflict. Emma grew into a teenager, strong but distant. Daniel became thoughtful, keeping everything inside. They both carried invisible wounds. Their childhood was marked not by love, but by the shadow of fights. When Emma turned 18, she left home for university. She cried as she packed, not from sadness but from relief. Daniel stayed behind a little longer, helping his mother when his father's anger grew. The siblings held on to each other. As young adults, Emma and Daniel began to build their own lives. Emma studied psychology, wanting to understand pain. Daniel found comfort in writing music, turning his emotions into words and melodies. Slowly they started healing through their choices. They often remembered their promise from that cold night under the bed. Emma would say, "We will not repeat this." Daniel nodded, determined. The memory of their parents shouting became a lesson, not a chain. Their wounds became warnings. Emma fell in love with a kind man who listened more than he spoke. At first, she feared arguments would return, but he showed her that love could be calm. Daniel believed that love should be built on trust, respect, and patience. When their parents finally separated, the children were already adults. The house became quiet, but it was too late to heal the past. Anna and Mark lived with regret, realizing too late the harm their battles had caused. The damage was done. Emma often visited her mother, who was kind but distant. Daniel sometimes spoke with his father, but the conversations were short. The children carried respect, but the warmth was gone. They had learned that forgiveness did not erase scars. As the years went by, Emma and Daniel built new families. Their homes were different, full of soft voices, laughter, and patience. They argued sometimes, but always with care, never with cruelty. They had chosen a new path. One evening, sitting together as adults, Emma and Daniel talked about the past. Daniel said softly. "We survived it." Emma smiled and said, "Yes, but we also changed it." They knew their childhood had shaped them, but it did not define their future. The echo of their parents' silence still lived in their memory, but it no longer controlled them. Instead, it guided them to protect their own children from pain. From broken pieces, Emma and Daniel built something whole.